Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Emily, the department manager here at Payroll. And today's video is going to cover submitting through our Phoenix online platform. And when you come to the main screen, you'll notice that you will hit this dashboard right here. And pretty much everything that you will need to do to navigate through the system is going to be available on the blue panel that runs vertically along the left-hand side. We will cover some of these menus briefly at the beginning of the video, but we will primarily dive right into submitting payroll, and then I will go through them a little bit more in depth at the tail end of the video. So it is advised that you are using a computer or PC to do the payroll, but if you are going to use a cell phone, reach out to us because we can turn on the ability for you to use this switch to mobile app function, which would make it a lot more user-friendly when you are trying to submit through a cell phone. But today's video is going to cover submitting it on your computer. So once you are on the dashboard, you'll notice you have a lot of information coming at you right here on the main page. But if we look along here, we can see that it condenses it for us into things like employees, submitting payroll, reports, some of the other auxiliary features like Cyberpay, employee onboarding, and timekeeping. So when we are on the main page, we'll notice if we hit reports, it'll take us to our reports page, as well as a lot of other functionality through here. Employees, when we select that, it will take us to where we would need to add changes, add employees, or make changes to them. We do advise that for the most part, if you can make your changes to your employees before you start your payroll, that is advised. It does make it a little bit easier, but I'll go through during the portion of the video. You can make some changes on the fly as well. And then submitting payroll is where you will see you come to the main menu to submit the payroll. Once again, you have an option to make changes or add your employees through this menu function right here, as well as on the left-hand side. But when you are submitting your payroll, the first option you're going to want to come to here is company and dates, the little calendar. This will show you what is set up for your starting, ending, and check date. Now, we will pre-populate this calendar for you, but if you find that there's anything wrong with it, we do request that you reach out to us and let us know. If it's a situation of maybe you missed your check date, so you're a day late in submitting it, then that's okay. You don't need to tell us that, but you can simply hit override right here, select from your drop down, and then it will allow you to manually type in what your check date truly should be. If you find that you're making a change to your starting or your ending date and it's a one-time thing, that's fine. But as I mentioned, if it's an ongoing problem or something's wrong with your calendar, let us know. If you are skipping a check date completely, then you can select from the drop down and pick the next one in sequence. You would not want to enter anything in starting, ending, and check date, and then also select from the drop down, or we'll override everything that you just keyed. So you would change the check date if you need to, and then hit save. And then it'll take you back to the main menu. Review changes is where you would go to see if there was anything that was changed on your employee's behalf between the last payroll and the current payroll. This is a nice feature if there's a specific employee that you're looking to see if there was a change that was made. It will list out the date that it was done and who did it. But you can also select from this drop-down menu here to find which specific employees may have had the change. Probably a little bit more of a functionality that you might find useful if you have multiple admins or supervisors that are in the software, but that is an available option to you. Import time is going to be a menu option that may or may not even be available to you. And this is going to be if you're utilizing our timekeeping software or you are importing a spreadsheet. Once you select that, it won't even be selectable for you if the function's not turned on. But if it is turned on, you'll notice that you can come in here and you'll have either the option of submitting something through the online timekeeping or coming here to an Excel file through a CSV, and then it would ask you to choose the file from your directory. We would ask you to reach out to us if this is a function that you're interested in. The Excel has to have a converter or a formatting put together before it's ready to use. But the online timekeeping, if you have a situation where that is mapped to you, you would just simply click import. And then what that will do is it will bring that time over for you and enter it onto the grid. So we have import successful. So I can say next at this point. And it will take me to my online pay grid. Now, if the import function was not available, then I would just simply hop right over to enter payroll. And once I select enter payroll, I can see that that takes me to the same grid that we were just on a second ago. But if I made a mistake or I didn't mean to import the time and it was wrong, then I can hit this reset pay grid option right here. And it will ask me if I'm sure I want to reset the grid. And if I say yes, then it will put it back to what it was before I tried importing the time over. But when you come to your pay grid, if you're not importing any time, then it would be just simply where you would key the information. You can see that you have all of the pay categories listed here. These are customizable. So if you find that you don't like the order of them, there's categories on there that need to be there that are not. You can on the fly add and remove types. You can see you have the red circle with the minus on the far right hand side of the page. If you select that, it will remove the category for you, but it will only do that for the current payroll. We can cover later in the video where you could make that permanently a change. But also if there's a pay category on here that I'd like to add or have another row for, I can hit this green plus on the left-hand side of the page, and it will put another category in there for me. I can search for this pay grid. If there's a specific employee that I'm looking for, I can type in the employee's name and it will tell me here all of the different ones that pop up with that criteria. It's first name or last name, whichever one. But I would want to delete that search criteria to get back to the grid. It doesn't delete everyone by searching. It just filters your view so that you're only looking at that one particular person. So I am going to enter in some hours. If you're entering in things like regular overtime, you cannot enter just regular and then have the computer allocate any overtime. So for example, I wouldn't be able to say 45 and then the computer would automatically change it to 5. It won't do that. I have to enter in what's regular and then I have to separate the hours and put in what's the overtime. Same for things like vacation. I would have to enter in whatever they took for vacation or sick or holiday. My salary paid employees are going to look slightly different. As you can see down here, John Doe has a preset salary of $1,500 and it is already set for me. The hours are set and then the wage is set as a separate line so that if there are changes to the hours that need to be made, it won't affect the salary. So for example, if the salary paid employee really only worked 32 hours and then got 8 hours a holiday, I can enter in the hours like that and it won't affect their pay. Now, if you have a situation where the pay should be manipulated, then you do have this override column here on the grid that allows you to enter in a different rate of pay temporarily for just this one pay run. If override is not one of the columns that you have on your grid, then you can customize that by coming here to this button here that says show hide columns. When you select that, it will show you a check mark next to any of the columns that are already on your grid. And override, if it's not selected, you would just want to be sure that you select it. There is also the ability to select other things like, divisions, jobs, and that type of thing. So that what'll happen is it'll place it as a column on the grid for you so that you can change those should you have need for that. So if I'm coming along and I notice that an employee has an incorrect pay rate and I want to change that, I can simply select this name here. So I'm on RPC sample. And when I select the name there, it'll take me into the employees menu. So on the left-hand side of the page, I'm going to find pay types. All of these other tabs are part of the employee menu and we'll cover those later. But for changing a pay category, I would simply click pay types and then it will take me into the pay for this employee. If I want to make a rate change, I would simply select this pencil to the left of the pay category and I would enter in what it is that the rate should be. Once I hit save, it's going to pop up with what is the effective date. Now this effective date will put itself in as sort of like a last raise date for historical purposes, but It will not make it, it will make it so that the rate that's on the grid is going to be this new rate. So even though the date's asking you what day it is that it should be in effect for, it will not separate hours on your pay grid for what you would have to manually enter in if there was a situation where it was right smack dab in the middle of your pay period that raise occurred. Now, if you are using our timekeeping system, then that actually will do that work for you. This effective date will be very important for you to enter in what the true date was that the raise occurred, so that it can put the correct days at the correct rates on your timekeeping grid. So we're just going to go ahead and save that for now. And then once it finalizes the save, then we should be able to close from the tab up here. And once we close out of here, it will refresh our pay grid automatically for us. And we'll notice that we now have the hours at that new pay rate. So I can just simply enter in some hours for this employee. And as I go from page to page, it should save my work for me. But when I get to the final page, it won't unless I go back. So I will notice that at the top or the bottom of the page will be a save button. And when there are changes to be made on the screen, it will be a dark blue. Once I save it and there are no more changes to be made, I'll notice that it is a light blue and I cannot select it. But as I'm going from page to page, it will save it for me. And one thing to pinpoint is that in some cases, the bottom of the page will carry over the pay categories for your previous employee onto the next page. So as we can see, if we go back to our previous page, at the bottom of the list is RPC sample, but it stops at bonus. But if I go to the next page, it continues with RPC sample and shows me the rest of this person's pay categories. That's important to pay attention to the names at the top, because it may not be that the person at the top of the next page is a new employee. So when you're entering information and hours in, if you have flat pay, things like commission, bonuses, reimbursements, tips, those types of things, you can see here that I have those categories available to me. And in the hours and amount, I can simply enter in however much it is that that employee is to be paid. And you'll notice that it'll populate that wage right here for me. There is a situation where some people don't always like seeing the full amount in the same column as the hours, because it'll show on the paycheck stub that way, and that can be confusing. So it's up to you on whether or not you would like to key the amount in the hours column, or you would like to enter in that you have one unit of it and then come over to your override column and enter the dollar amount there. As you can see, we now have a situation where this employee is earning $100 in commission, as well as $100 of a bonus, but the way in which we keyed it is differently. $100 at 1 hour, or excuse me, 100 hours at $1 an hour, or 1 unit at $100 an hour. Either way is fine, as long as you have a 1 factor. It either needs to be a rate of 1 or a unit of 1. And so we'll just simply scroll to the next page. And once we're done entering the information in, we will get to a review. But let's pretend we want to add somebody with a secondary check. So we'll just come in here to Emily Payroll and give her some hours, but then she wanted to have a commission and she wants that on a separate check. So once I key in the commission, I'll notice on the left-hand side here, underneath the name, I have a column that has all ones. This means that this check is happening on the first check. Anything I key onto the grid will happen on the first check. So if this person would like to have the commission or the flat pay category be on another check, I would simply say check 2. And then it would separate that check for me. If there are more, then you would simply say that that was check 3 and so on. So once we have everything entered in, we're going to make sure we save our work. And then we should see here totals. Once we select totals, this is the next step in getting closer to submitting the payroll. And what this will do is take you to a review screen. So Over here on the left-hand side are all of the different pays that were entered onto the grid. And then on the right-hand side over here, it shows us who had those. So right now it's showing us everyone with regular, and it's showing us all of the hours that were keyed for our regular. But if I wanted to see who had overtime, I would simply select overtime from the category over here on the left, and it would show me here on the right who had those hours. Now, if I find I've made a mistake in the payroll and I keyed the hours wrong, I can simply change it here and save it. And once I save it, then I can, it will successfully do that without having to go back to the pay grid. If I scroll down a little lower, I'll get to the section that pertains to deductions or benefits. Deductions obviously being something that comes out of your employee's check that might be a preset thing or a one-time amount. Benefits being maybe like a reimbursement that isn't affecting their take-home pay, or personal use of auto, things like that, that you have a need to enter in a one-time amount for. You would toggle between whether or not you're doing a benefit or a deduction. So let's pretend I have an advance that I'd like to take from my employee because they borrowed some money, or maybe they purchased, maybe they have purchases. When I am on the deductions tab, I would simply select the type I want from the left-hand side, and I'll notice over here on the right that it'll show me who has those deduction categories assigned to them. And it will show me what's set up to be fixed. And I have this option here for a one-time adjustment. Anything you enter into a one-time adjustment will add itself to what's set up as the fixed. So if this person was supposed to have $50, they've already got $10 assigned, then I would want to add my one-time adjustment as 40. In this particular case, this employee, RPC sample, they don't have anything preset. So if I were to enter in 50, then that would be how much would be coming out from the employee's check. Once you make your changes over here, you would want to hit this save button right here. So we're going to select save. And then I would come up here to submit payroll. This is going to give me an overview of what it is I'm submitting, along with my check date, starting and ending dates. And when I hit submit, it's going to tell me that, do you want to submit this payroll for preview? So I'm going to say yes. And then it will tell me that my calculation is going to be with me shortly. So when I select OK, what you'll notice is that all of these options become gray, and that is because while it is in processing, you cannot access them. You can't go in and make changes to your employees while your payroll is calculating or processing, or enter in another payroll. So we'll notice we've got this blue banner at the top of the screen that is showing us that we have a payroll calculation that is processing. What will happen is when this is done calculating, it will change to pending approval. So if I hover my mouse over it, I notice that it is blue and underlining itself. So that means it's a button. So when I select that, it should take me into the screen that pertains to payroll preview. Now I've noticed it's already switched to pending approval. So I'm just going to select the one calculation again in order to refresh this page. And once we are in the preview, we will notice that we have a payroll preview that we can view as a PDF. And over here under our workflow actions, we'll notice that we have the option to approve and modify our payroll. Now, one thing to keep in mind is we do not have your payroll until you approve and confirm. So you can submit your payroll and review it, modify it, go back, make changes, and resubmit again, but we don't have it until you've selected approve. And you can tell it's green, which means money. So as long as you continue to select your green buttons, you should be getting closer to actually submitting your actual payroll. But we're going to review this payroll right now by opening up this PDF that's here. Depending upon your web browser, you may have to go find it in order to open it. But this report here has a lot of information on it. What it's going to do is going to show us what it is that we have submitted. So our employee's name is here, and then the detail of the pay that we gave them all throughout here, the taxes that are being deducted from this employee's check, along with any preset deductions. As we can see here, here are the purchases that we entered in for that person. And then if we look on the same line as their name right here, all the way over to the right, we will notice what it is that's coming out for that employee's net pay. It will also show us if somebody is receiving direct deposit. It will show it here. If your company has direct deposit and you're noticing that they do not say that, it says no direct deposit, then you may want to determine whether or not that's an issue for you. But as you can see, you can tell right away on here who's getting paid through direct deposit and who's not. And then it also shows you what they have set up for taxation. But if you are coming along here and you find that there was an issue with something that you keyed, then what you would do is close. We're going to close that tab and come back here to your payroll menu. Then we would select modify payroll, and it will come up with a comments box. It is not necessary for you to enter in a comment. If you'd like to, you can, but this is really for your purposes only. So we would confirm and say modify payroll again. And what we will notice is that it opens up the ability for us to go back into our payroll. These menu options are blue again rather than gray. So we can come in here to enter payroll. And I can simply come in and fix whatever it was that I found that was wrong. So maybe I forgot to give RPC Sample Company some overtime, or maybe I forgot to give them some holiday pay, or even maybe a bonus that was supposed to be on a second check. So we'll simply go in here and enter in the pay that we need for that person, and then save it again, and then go through the process of submitting for review again. So I'm going to hit totals, and then we'll hit submit payroll one more time. And then it will ask me to confirm. So I'm going to say submit. It will tell me it's going to be, do I really want to submit this for preview? Yes, I do. And then once this is done, it will tell us that it will be available with us shortly. And if we simply refresh our screen, I'm going to come up here to refresh my screen. It will tell me that I'm locked down, which I understand, and I have this banner here at the top that says I have one payroll calculation that's processing. I'm going to go ahead and select it again so that I can get into that menu. Now, this may not be an instantaneous process. In some cases, it may be that it takes a few minutes, especially depending upon the volume. If it is more than, I'd say, a few minutes, maybe 15 minutes, I would reach out to us and let us know that you've been trying to get your payroll preview and it's been stuck. So once we click one payroll calculation, we'll notice we are back to our pending approval, and we're going to open up our payroll PDF again and review it one more time just to make sure that the changes that we made stuck. So here's my overtime that I now added for my employee, and then here is my sample employees bonus check. But what if we had a situation where we tried entering a deduction, and that deduction we did not want to stay? We don't want to see that. This deduction was not supposed to be here for John Doe. So what we would do is we would modify our payroll, and we would go back to our grid, and we would assign what we call a hold. So once I'm in enter payroll, I have the option here for holds. It is right here. When I say holds, it will take me into where I would either select the employee that I'm currently on, or I can say that it affects all of the employees. I can say if it's a permanent hold, or I can say if it's just this one payroll. So if I'm on Jane Doe, for example, then I would say I do not want the 401k contribution to occur. And you'll notice it turns it yellow. That is because I have assigned the hold to this person. So I will save and close, and then we will submit the payroll again. We'll just go through this process real quick. And then when we see our payroll preview, we should be able to see that that hold has taken place. One payroll calculation processing, and we'll give this just a second. As we can see, it's just taking an extra second here. and it is already ready. So I'm going to click on it one more time. And then we can review our payroll and make sure that the hold that we put in place for our employee has stuck. So as we can see, here's Jane Doe. We held her 401k, and we can now see that her 401k contribution is now a 0. So if everything is perfect with our payroll, you can scroll down through, get down to the bottom, and you'll notice that you have totals for each employee, but you also have a grand company total down here, as well as on the very last page, this nice number here that's called total expenses. Pretty much what this is going to do is it's going to tell you if, in order to fund your payroll today with everything that you've entered in, you will need to have this amount available in your bank account. And that covers the gross wages, as well as the employee taxes and deductions, employer contributions for things like your 401k, or if you have anything like that, as well as your employer taxes. There might be some processing warnings at the bottom of your page. Some of these may or may not be critical. Sometimes you may want to pay attention to them. The system will allow an accrual, if you have one, to go negative. And if that's the case, it will warn you down here that somebody is using more hours than they have available. And that may be something that you might want to look into. So once we close out, we are ready to approve our payroll. So we're going to select this green approve button here from our workflow actions, and then we would hit approve payroll again. Now, if there is a comment that you would like to put in to tell us something about your payroll, you have the ability to do that here in the comments section. Let's pretend that you tried to get a check on, something on a check too, or maybe you tried holding a deduction and it wasn't working for you. Then you would simply put that in the comment here and then approve it. We don't have any comments at this time, so we're just going to simply approve our payroll. And then it will tell us that it is currently being processed. And depending upon your features, it may be a very quick process for your payroll report to actually publish online. In other cases, it may be later in the day that you'd see your finalized payroll reports. So while we're waiting for this to process, we will go ahead and review some of our other menus here. So as we sort of looked at before, you have employees. And when you're in the employee menu, this is where you would select the name of your employee. And then you have all of these available options on the right-hand side. This should be the left-hand side. Starts out with the information. So if we select information, we can see what's in here for our employee's name, address, social security number, department, that type of thing. And we would be able to make changes to this once our payroll is finalized. Accruals, this would be something that would be preset up for a vacation, sick, PTO accrual. We would have you reach out to us to help get that in place for you. But then once it is something that is set up and ready to go, then it would be that you would be able to see what that person's accrual is from within here. As you'll notice, you can toggle within the different accrual, the different menu tabs from one employee to the next by selecting that up here or hitting the drop down here. And then what it'll do is it'll keep you within that menu option. Allocations is where you will see what your pay grid primarily looks like. So, and it will also be where you can assign if there are different labor departments for your employees. Say, for example, not 100% of their work is being done at one location or department. You can come in here to this labor allocation and split the work between different locations or departments. But the pay allocation section up here is where you would see your pay grid. As we talked about when we were entering payroll, you do have the ability to manipulate what's on the grid at the time by either hitting the plus or the minus. But if we have a situation where we have a category that's on here that we don't want to be on there all the time, then what we would do is come in here to allocations, and then there would be a pencil that we could select, and then we could simply remove that row, or we could put in a preset unit. Like, say, for example, you want to set up a commission so that it's the same every time, and you would put a 1 unit in and then assign that pay rate, and then it will make it so that that commission happens on a per payroll basis. Benefits would be where you would go if there was an employer contribution to a retirement plan, an employer paid medical or dental that you want that has no bearing on the employee's taxation, has no bearing on their net check. That's be where you would find the benefits. Custom data is something that you can use to show user-defined fields, which you can later use for custom report building, should you want. You would just simply go in here, and then you have the ability to say that you want a specific user-defined field. Reach out to us and let us know, and we would update that for you. And deductions is where you would go if there was something that was a preset amount that you wanted to add, change, stop, and you will see that it lists out all the different types of deductions here. Direct deposit would be, if your direct deposit is a feature for your company, it would be available to you. If it is not a feature, it wouldn't even be something that you could see. But this would be where you would come in here and add direct deposits, make changes to them. We will go over on a later video how to set up direct deposits for your employees. But EE taxes would be where, should you need to make changes to the way that you have someone set up. Say, for example, they are married, or they're changing from married to single, or vice versa, or they have deductions, then you can come in here to EE taxes, and that would be where you would make changes to the employees withholding. So if we hit this little pencil to the left here, we can change the person's marital status. So maybe they're not married, maybe they want to go to head household or single down here at the bottom, and then we would change the exemptions. Now this is a dollar value here. So for the federal, so you'd want to be sure that you're entering this in as a dollar value, not a dependent number. They changed that back in 2020 when they issued the new W-4s from the IRS. Extra withholding would be where maybe somebody wants to contribute an extra $20 on top of what the tables are doing. They would simply put that in here. Or you could enter in a flat rate. Flat rate would be either a percentage or a dollar value. So if we are within our employee and they'd like to set, say, for example, their state income tax at a specific rate, I would simply click on the name to actually open up the whole page. And as I can see here, I either have an extra amount here or I can say that it's a flat amount rather than an extra amount. And once I hit flat amount, it will say you're entering in a flat amount, or I would say not a flat amount, and it will be an additional withholding. And then I can put in that they want a flat percentage, like maybe say, for example, they'd like to have a flat 10% for going to it rather than the tables. So that's how you can kind of make some changes to withholding. ER taxes really shouldn't be doing much in here. It'll be preset for you based off of your setup. ESS is where your employees can be set up to review their own individual paycheck stubs or W-2s. Your employees can actually set their own employee self-service access up. You can come into ESS and you can send them a welcome email, or they can go to it from ralpayroll.com and then select that they want to go to we'll just open it up real quick so you can come into our website for RAL Payroll, and you'll notice that there is an employee payroll login right here on the main page. And when they select that, they would simply come into new user, and then they would enter in the 4 pieces of information. You will need to provide them with your 4-digit company code. You would want to reach out to that if you want to reach out to us if you need help with that. But it is also available from your company page from within side of the website. So if you come in here to company, you'll notice that it gives you your company code right here. So when your employees are entering in a new user, they would need that 4-digit company code along with their first and last name and the last 5 digits of their social security number. So you can assist your employees with that from within the employee's self-service. So when you're in ESS, You can see what it is that that person has set up for a login name, as well as what they have for their email address and then their password. You can unlock them if they get lost, or excuse me, you can unlock them if they get locked, but you can also change the password for them should they have any issues doing that themselves. Forms is where you would see for just this one specific employee the previous year's W-2s or all year's W-2s. And when you select the W-2 here, you can see that person's W-2. This is also available to the employee individually through the self-service. HR data is where you're going to see things like what's the hire date, what's a rehire date, maybe what their birth date is, that type of stuff. So, you know, there's a lot of information on here that you can fill in. Most of it would obviously be for reasons of filtering. Pay history, if you're in the pay history from over here, you can notice that this is the most recent paycheck stub for this employee. And when you click on the date, it will pull up a paycheck stub for that person, which is also available to them within their self-service. And we've kind of already covered pay types and all the different pay categories that you can have for that employee. Should there be something that you need to add to it, you would simply hit New Employee Pay. Pick from the drop down whatever it is that you want to give to that person, and then come over here to the Assign Wage and enter in what that rate should be. But what we're also going to do is come over here to our payroll reports. Now that we've gone through the employee menu, we're going to select payroll reports. And you'll notice that when you're within the reports list, that what it will do is it will show you over here in this main section the reports that have been published on behalf of your company. So when you select the actual report title here in provider uploads, these are your employer reports, and as you open them up, you'll see that it'll have information in here. One of the very important reports is what we call a payroll summary. The payroll summary is very important because it's going to list out for you down here in this tax deposit liability area what your taxes are and the due date that's associated with them. Please be sure to pay attention to that, because if we're paying your taxes electronically for you, it's going to go based off of the due dates that are on this report. Scrolling through, you'll see that you might have a direct deposit summary report, and then there's a check register report. We can customize these check registers so that they're in order by department, or they can just simply be in order by first and last name. But you'll notice that this is basically your version of each individual person's check stub. And it will show you what each person received as far as gross wages, and then obviously what it is that their take-home pay was. So when we close out of that tab, it will take us back to the menu, and then we can see the history of things that we've submitted. And then down here in this print checks area is where you can get your check stubs for, say, for example, you print your own checks. You can hit print checks, and then it'll open up where you have this PDF in here. And when you open it up, then it will be a copy of the check stubs that you might need to print, and it will be for everybody that you paid on the payroll. Those that have direct deposit will look like this. It'll say it was a direct deposit voucher. Those that are checks, live checks, will look like this. And as I mentioned, it could be that maybe the packet is physically printed for you and it would arrive through mail or courier, or you pick it up, or in some cases people simply like to just simply print their own checks, and you can do that as well. At the bottom part of the reports menu is your tax forms. So the tax forms are going to show you the reports that we're filing for you on a quarterly and annual basis. You would just simply open it up and it will tell you what it's for, what time period it's for, and then it would be an example of a report that is printed. This is our sample company, so it's, you know, kind of a mess sometimes, but when you open up that report, it'll show you the return that was filed for you. So you also have other options over here to customize the field that you're looking at. So for example, maybe all you want to do is look at all the list of your reports. You can hit provider uploads and it will show you in the main page just your employer reports. Print checks. If you select that, it'll condense the field of your screen to show you just your checks. Same with your tax forms. If you select tax forms, it'll just show you that. Built-in reports and custom reports. We will go over custom reports in another video on how to create that, but built-in reports is a very nice area because let's pretend you have a report that you would like to generate for your company, and it's not something that's pre-programmed with it, but you'd also need it for a specific time period. So if you come into built-in and select one of the reports, you can come over here and select from a predefined range, or you can select this radial button here and say you would like to enter in a custom range. So if we're just looking for, say, for example, January, then we would enter in the date range we're looking for and we would select run, and then it would populate in the area below the information for that report. Doesn't look like there's anything for January of this year, so we'll enter in maybe a little bit more criteria and see, we can see here the information, and we can export this as a PDF or we can export it to Excel. Depending upon the different built-in report that you select, you may or may not be able to export that to Excel, or it may come out to Excel in not the greatest format. But this has been another review of our online Cyberpay product. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Please feel free to reach out should you have any more questions.